Yesterday, the Young Turks released a video on their YouTube account entitled "Why Black Lives Matter is Important." And in the video, Cenk Uygur, who's one of the hosts of the Young Turks uh, show, new show, outlined the different reasons for why the movement Black Lives Matter is so important and such a big deal, and spoke about slavery and just kind of went through the history. We go in the 1960s and just that the whole civil rights movement basically, and basically was making the point that Black lives have not mattered in the past, and they're needed to address the fact that we have all of this disparity in killings of blacks. Well, I have one problem with this video. Well, let me just compliment it in saying that it had nice production value, uh, and that a lot of what it said was true. We've had those issues in the past, but there's a point in which one has to, for lack of a better term, move on. And I don't mean that in the sense of, oh, let's completely forget, let's act as if that never happened. Let's pretend that was a whole fantasy, that's gone. That's never coming back. It might come back, but I sincerely doubt it. What I'm getting at is there are issues nowadays that have to be addressed, and that extends to the murders, as he pointed out, with the lynchings and everything, except nowadays, believe it or not, they're mostly being done to blacks by other blacks. And that's not to say they're all savages or monsters or anything, that the majority are bad people, because they're not. But the problem is that you have a plurality of those killings in Chicago, in Baltimore, in, it might be Milwaukee, or in South Los Angeles, but it's most especially Chicago, almost every single day. And Black Lives Matter does nothing to address any of those killings. We had a report over this past holiday weekend, the 4th of July weekend, that 60 people were killed just within Chicago alone over that 3-day period. And hearing that bothers me, just because I don't enjoy hearing about the deaths of other black people, and I'm disturbed by the idea that we are killing each other more than anyone else. But it reinforces my belief that the best way to show that you seriously are bothered with the killings of blacks just in general is to address the plurality of them. I mean, you can't address all. I'm not going to expect anyone to address every single one, but they're always just addressing the ones by white officers. And in doing that, it seemed to me as if they were presenting this narrative that whites are killing us, they're murdering us, they're shooting us. They are shooting us, but certainly not at the same record of blacks that are being killed by other blacks. And to me, it feels as if there's this attempt on Black Lives Matter's part to not address those killings in Chicago, which I'm going to keep using as the main example because that's where the majority is happening, unfortunately. Because they believe that if they address those, it will make blacks look bad. Well, I got news for them. We've already looked bad in stereotypes and other just different portrayals in media. But the way to correct the problem is to address a problem, and by ignoring it, which is what they've been doing for the past 4 years since the group's just creation after the murder of Trayvon Martin, they're not going to solve anything for anyone. You have all of these cops, and they're right. People are right to raise this issue. Why be so bothered by cops killing your race when people of your race are killing each other? Now, does that mean the cop killings are something we should ignore? No, absolutely not. But Black Lives Matter could have been phenomenal. They could have been great. They could have just addressed, I don't expect everything, but if they addressed just some of the deaths in Chicago. There was a shooting not too long ago, about last year or earlier this year, of a young man, a young boy, 4-year-old boy, 5-year-old boy. He was really young, killed by two black, older guys or whatever. One of which was notoriously bailed out by his girlfriend, who, that was a whole nother story. But the point is, that was something they could have addressed. And if they had done that, I would have loved them. I would have said, this movement is great. They're wonderful. I would have thought the world of them. Just off addressing that one story alone. Because it did make some headlines. But they didn't do it. Now the Young Turks doesn't address most of the Chicago killings either anyway. Except, well, not in the conventional sense of, oh, let's make a video about it. They will offhandedly, from what I've remembered and watching the plurality of their videos, make some reference to killings in Chicago and murders over there. I think it was in those videos about Ron Emanuel, which was another matter. They were kind of just interwoven them together. The point is, I can justify them not spending time on it because they were created as a news organization. They're going to give priority to news that is breaking the headlines, and sadly, a lot of those killings don't make major news. And it's unfortunate, but at the same time, you have to remember that those shootings are the work of people over there, and they're based in Los Angeles, the Young Turks. And so I can understand the whole detached just feeling of that. I've never been to Chicago either, but I still feel that it's wrong and that it should be addressed. But I don't blame them because they weren't created for that purpose. Black Lives Matter, on the other hand, was to address the killings of blacks and to show that lives mattered. And if they wanted to do that, they would address the shootings of blacks in Chicago. And I've never once heard any report, seen any story, read any headline about them doing that. And so long as they neglect to address this, we're going to continue to see the same result of these blacks who are impressionable, believing the narrative that we're just being slaughtered by white officers over and over and over again. I spoke to someone yesterday, they're also African American. They told me that they actually believe the officers in Dallas got what was coming to them. And they said that they were content with what happened because they believe that the cops are the ones killing the majority of blacks. They were so misinformed about news. They even thought the shooter at that Charleston church last year, which I made a video of the anniversary of, was off. He got off. No one did anything to him. I had to explain to them that was not the case and that they were incorrect. But again, you should not have to address that and ignore everything else. And you know, I take so much issue with this reluctance to speak on Chicago, not because it's one or two incidents over there. It's the majority of shootings of African Americans, and it's being completely ignored, completely just removed from the national discussion. And because of that, we're going to see more of it. And when that happens, I want to know how these Black Lives Matter members are going to feel, how these people who, you know, have such an issue with the deaths of their people are going to feel. I don't see how you can have genuine outrage when you've done nothing to address all of those murders over there. Absolutely nothing. And I'm not going to hold one single individual up to any type of standard, because I don't believe that one person should have to address all of that. But there's a movement of thousands of, I'm going to guess, thousands of people in it. They can do it, but they refuse to. And the Young Turks video, again, I feel was good production-wise, and some of the story was accurate. I just think that they are overlooking the fact that this movement does not address other killings of blacks, in particular the ones by blacks. And ignoring that, who does that help? What problem does that solve? What doors does that open? You know, I hate to get all preaching on you, but I really am serious about this. I don't see what that does for anyone to just ignore it completely. Like I said before, the only way they get back my interest, my respect, my just wanting to acknowledge them in a positive way is if they start addressing those shootings of the blacks in Chicago and other areas. But I know they won't. And I know there's nothing I can do or that anyone else can do to sway them to address those killings, which makes me frustrated even more than anything else, because it's sad what's going on over in Chicago. It's disturbing, it's disgusting, and we shouldn't tolerate it. But by ignoring it and not doing anything to address it, which is what they've been doing for the last 4 years since this movement really came to fruition. That's exactly what they're doing. They're allowing it to happen, and we're going to see more killings, the exact opposite of what they claim they want. You could have fooled me.